Hey guys, welcome to another weekly focus. And before we look at the focus and everything, I just want to say thank you all to 500 subscribers. So that was a big milestone for me, and getting to 500 subscribers, it meant a lot to me. And we're still growing, so hopefully we'll get to 1,000 very soon. And let's keep going, let's keep pushing. So before we look at other things, let me do the trade recap first. So let me pull this up real quick. Alright, so I had two opportunities this week, and I'm just going to show you, and these opportunities were all losses. So the first one was on gold. So I had this position right here, and I was looking for selling opportunities on gold. So my intention was to take prices to the downside, and once we get to the downside, and then we could probably look at, say, the trend line from higher time frames, so I can take a buy, or I could take a buy from that area. So it didn't play out like that, so I took a loss on this. So I had -1 on this, so it took me out completely. So I had -1 on gold, and I had one on BTC as well. So right here I had a buy on BTC, and just like the same thing, intentions were to take out these highs on area like this, and to see prices going all the way to the upside to take out an area that was all the way to the left side. I'll show you this later on when we do the analysis thing. And unfortunately, I really don't analyze BTC unless it's requested upon, but I don't look at BTC when I'm doing the market focus and everything. That's because you don't have a lot of people that's trading this like around me, so I hardly put this analysis out there like that. Alright, so that's it. So I had a loss on BTC as well, so I had -1 on this. So this week I had two trades, one on gold and one on BTC. So -1 on gold, -1 on BTC, and that's it, -2% down for the week. So I had all these losses I think on Monday, and that was a very rough start of the week for me. That was a rough start to the week for me. Alright guys, so let's look at the next thing. So let's go back to the charts right here, and we're back to the DXY. So let's analyze the DXY again, and nothing has changed compared to last week. So the same buyers we had from last week is the same thing I'm looking at for this week. So I'm going to show you real quick. So when you zoom out on this chart, you can tell price has been consolidating, and this is the same consolidation we're looking at last week. So price moved to the downside, you had to push to the upside. Price moved to the downside right here, and we're expecting a push to the upside. So the first question is, if price has to go to the upside, where is the most likely area price is going to face difficulties at, and is there a trend line we can work with? So to look at the areas where we can face difficulties at, or something I like calling like the point of interest thing, yeah. So you have this area of 104 right here, and I'll step down to lower time frames and I'll show you, because we was expecting prices to pull back to an area like 104 and even go lower than 104 for us to see prices moving again to the upside. But when you look at it currently on the daily time frame, price is still moving to the upside. So the overall bias stays the same. We're expecting prices to get to 106, which is a psychological level right here, and for prices to get to 106, we might see a trend. So you might see price pulling back, and you see price moving to the upside. So just looking at it from the highest time frame, which is a daily time frame in my case, that's what I'm looking at. But as we step down to lower time frames, it's going to start making more sense. So another question is, if price has to move, say from here all the way to 106, which is a psychological level around here, is there a possibility for prices to pull back to this trend line before you see prices moving to the upside? And I'm going to say yes, there's a high possibility for prices to pull back again, because we still have the psychological level of 104. So there's a high possibility prices could pull back to 104 to test this area. And if you see like price is having it difficult to go through an area like this, this could be an indication that price is going to move all the way to the upside, and the next level has to be 105. And if we breach 105, the next level has to be 106. So that's what I'm looking at. And so we can look at, say, the 8-hour time frame. Let's see. All right, cool. So this is it right here. So when you look at this, price was making higher highs like this right up until this point. There was this difficulty for prices, so we had higher lows as well up until this point. So currently price is trading at 104, So we went through 104 and we had this reaction from the buyers keeping prices above 104. So if prices stay above 104, so I'll take this out. If prices stay above 104, this is what I'm looking at right here. If prices can stay above 104, the psychological level, then the next level has to be 105. And for prices to get to 105, we need to take out an area like this. So there's still like a possibility for prices again to pull back and test 104. And for me, this is it. When you have price coming through a psychological number, so like this is the first time price came through the psychological number, or you can count this as well. But the more price finds it difficult to go through an area like this, it just increases the chances that price is going to move to the upside. So there's still a high possibility for prices to pull back to an area like 104 and for us to see prices moving all the way to 105. That's a possibility. Another possibility could simply be prices could continue moving. Like right now we've tested 104, we've tested 104 again, and prices can just continue moving all the way to the upside. So those are the two possibilities I'm looking at. And if you ask me like, do I see any possibilities for sales, and I'll tell you no, the sales are not really likely like that. I mean, like the major selling move. So if you look at it from the daily time frame, like right here, it's really difficult for me to say prices is going to sell like this, like massively. And this is something I was looking at, I think 2 weeks ago, and I was expecting those prices to sell massively to the downside to test, I think 100, like the 100 mark, which was around here, 100. And it was once prices started showing me something different, and I had to look at it from like the daily time frame. I had to zoom out just to see what's happening. It's very unlikely for us to see this massive sales coming. It's a possibility, but it's very unlikely. So what I'm expecting, and what's really common, or what is easy to happen, you might see prices pulling back just a little bit, and the first area is probably to test 104. It might go lower again or just deeper, and then you see prices moving again to the upside. So remember, once price is moving, if price is moving, say to the upside, you should expect a pullback. You should expect pullbacks to come in and for prices to continue to the upside. So currently we'll have this massive move, and we should expect pullbacks to come in. We've had the first wave of the pullback, and there's still a possibility price can go lower than this for us to take prices again to the upside. So once I step down to lower time frames, like the 8-hour time frame, the 4-hour time frame, all I'm paying attention to is like this area right here. So I'm looking at this area right here. There's a psychological level right here of 104. Price has held this area. This was the first time we had price coming back. We had buyers reacting from this area. So what is just like this is telling me there might be some difficulties for prices to push to the downside. Now it's a possibility for us to see prices coming to the downside, and if it happens, you might see price pulling back in a corrective manner, and which is a very good thing, up until the point where it finds it difficult to make more lows. Then we see buyers stepping in. So that's a possibility. And as I told you, another possibility could simply be prices pulling back to this area of 104. You find it difficult to go through 104, and you see prices moving all the way to 106, and the first level for us to go through has to be 105. So those are all the possibilities I'm looking at. But if you ask me, I'll tell you I still have these buyers on the DXY for prices to move to the upside, like long term. So long term for me on the DXY is to see prices moving to the upside. So temporarily you can see sellers coming in, you get a test of 104, and you could see sellers coming in to go a little bit deeper, and then you see prices moving again to the upside. So those are all possibilities right there. So let's look at, say, the 4-hour time frame. And the 4-hour time frame on the hourly, on the 8-hour time frame, it's almost the same thing. So you still have your higher highs. Price was making higher highs, price made higher lows right here. And when you look at this on lower time frames like the hourly time frame, you can tell price is trading outside this trend line right here. So you need to be careful, and that's why I said I'll show you. Let me step down to the hourly real quick. Okay, So this is the hourly time frame. If you look at the hourly time frame, you had this massive move to the upside, and you can tell you had this trend right here. Price was moving correction, making higher highs and higher lows, and at this point right here, price is currently trading outside the trend line. So there's two things that can happen at this point, as I told you from those higher time frames already. If we see an inability, let's say buyers are reacting right now from 104, buyers are reacting from 104, and if you go off of the principle of psychological numbers, you should expect prices to continue moving all the way to 105. But let's say for some reason buyers find it difficult to go higher, this could be an early indication that price is going to pull back to 104, or even go lower than 104 to areas like this. Once you see this inability around these areas, it could be an indication for you to see prices moving again to the upside. So those are all possibilities, and you have to watch this closely and pay attention to what's happening and see what makes sense. So you need to exercise some patience as well, and that's it. So once I had the losses on gold and on BTC, I had to just take time off the chart and say, all right, what's actually happening? What's price trying to show me, and do I need to be a little bit more patient just to see what's happening? So this is like an example of it. If we see these buyers finding it difficult to move prices to the upside progressively, it could be an early sign for sellers to come in, and this is an area I'm paying attention to. 104, prices can go deeper than 104 before you see buyers stepping in. It's a very big possibility. I've seen this repeating itself over and over again. So those are all possibilities, but long term on the DXY, prices moving to the upside. The next level has to be 105, and the next level after 105 has to be 106. So that's it. So if you have these buyers on the DXY, now we can step back to the daily time frame like this. So let's step back to the daily time frame. I'll put this on the hourly as well. All right, cool. So let's put this on the hourly. All right, so the next level I'm looking at, so the next level I'm looking at is 105, and as I told you, price could simply move all the way to 105, and price can pull back to an area like 104, and price can come a little bit deeper than this, and you still see prices moving all the way to 105. So this is what I'm looking at on the DXY, and I'll put this right here. First possibility, you see prices moving all the way to 105. Then the next possibility, you get a test of this area, which is 104, this psychological level. If price finds it difficult to go through an area like this, you see prices moving again to 105. The next possibility, you could see prices stepping lower than 104. So you could see prices trading below 104 to take prices to the downside, just giving you a deeper pullback or a complex pullback, and you still see prices moving all the way to 105. So this is long term for me on the DXY, and I'm going to watch out and see which of these scenarios is going to play out. So first, if we have this inability right here, then we could see the first possibility, a test of this area 104 and a possible move to the upside, or you get a test of 104 and price trading below 104, find it difficult to go further down, and you see prices reacting, or you see buyers reacting from an area like this, and the next target has to be 105, and possibilities for us to go all the way to 106. So let's keep this right here. Let's keep these scenarios right here on the DXY. So this is it. Long term on the DXY, we're expecting prices to move to the upside. Now we have the scenarios we're playing with. There's no trend I can work with currently, and all I'm playing with right now is just the psychological levels, and price is currently respecting 104, and I'll build my analysis from this, and everything that happens after this, I'll keep looking at this area of 104 to see what happens. If price is pulling to 104, is it rejecting at that point? If it goes past 104, how impulsive is it? And if the buyers are trying to step in again, then I know price is headed all the way to 105. So let's keep this right here and look at the first pair. So the first one has to be US30. Now look at what's happening on US30. I showed you guys how to come up with the trend lines, how to draw the trend lines properly, and if you don't know how to draw the trend lines properly, there's a video I did recently. Go check this video out. It's going to help you to draw your trend lines properly and to pick the pivot points. So if I do this on the daily time frame on US30, so what are we looking at? The first thing is we have a swing right here, we have a pivot point, and we've had another swing. So we should expect prices to sell to the next pivot point for us to attempt the buys again. So if you're looking for a long-term bias on US30, this is it right here. So long-term on US30, price is moving to the upside. This is easy to tell. Price is moving to the upside. You have your first swing, you have a pivot point, you have your next swing, and you should expect prices to pull back to this pivot point right here, and for us to attempt the buys again. So that's a long-term view on US30, and this is the same thing I said last week. We should expect prices at some point to pull back to this daily trend line, but it's going to be very difficult for you. It's going to be very difficult for you to sit through these pullbacks, and so what we can do is step down to lower time frames and see if there's something tradable on this other time frame. So if you step down to the 8-hour time frame, before you step down to the 8-hour time frame, remember, swing, pivot, swing, waiting for the pivot. So now this move right here, so everything you see here, we have to break this down on the 8-hour time frame. So let's step down to the 8-hour time frame right here, and this is perfect. So on the 8-hour time frame, this is what we're looking at. There's a swing, there's a pivot, and there's a swing, price pulling back to this pivot. That's another swing right there, and this is the next swing. So right now price has pulled back to this area, and it's like there's a violation. So I'm going to clean this and then zoom into this area right here on the 8-hour time frame. All right, so let's look at this on the 8-hour time frame. Now, how do we play with something like this? So you have price pulling back to this area, which is supposed to be a swing point for us, and for every swing point, once price comes back to the swing point, you should expect a reaction and for prices to move again to the upside. So now let's interpret this and use the DXY to our advantage as well, and the DXY can help you stay away from certain bad trades, and I'll show you why I'm saying stuff like this. So normally once prices come back to, let's say, the pivot point right here, we're expecting prices to move to the upside. That's normal, that's easy, because you're just trading off of what the touches of the trend line, and this is easy to assimilate, right? But let's break this down. If you look at what's happening on the daily time frame, so you need to pay attention to higher time frames. So for example, everything you see here is happening on the 8-hour time frame. So this moves right here. So everything you see, all these buys, this is all coming from the 8-hour time frame. So we should expect buys again from an area like this to take prices to the upside, but you need to pay attention because you have a pivot point here on the daily time frame that hasn't been triggered. So there's a possibility, if this, so this area is what we're looking on the 8-hour time frame right there. Hold on, I didn't do it properly. So we're looking at an area like this, because yeah, we're looking at an area like this. So this right here is what we're looking at on the 8-hour time frame. So normally this should bounce off of an area like this. You have a psychological number right here, you have a trend line. Normally prices should bounce off of an area like this for us to see prices moving to the upside. But if this price bounces off of this 8-hour pivot point and it finds it difficult to make highs or to make new highs, so if you see this difficulty right here, this could be an early sign for this trend on the 8-hour time frame to get violated, and for us to see prices moving back to this daily pivot point right here, and for us to take prices again to the upside. So I have this in mind, and that's why I always tell people you can't just be trading off of trend lines. So you can't just wait for prices to pull back to the trend line and you keep buying. So when you're buying, you need to ask yourself certain questions. What is price at, and what's price trying to do, and what are the possibilities for prices to move from this point to the next point? So if you find it difficult to move to the upside, it's an early sign for prices to deliver back to the daily and for you to take prices to the upside. So once it happens, this could be very massive sales for us to play with. So that's something I'm looking at also. All right, so let's step back to the 8-hour time frame So you have the trend line thing on the 8 hour time frame, and I had to use these two time frames just to make you understand what I'm looking at. So if you have this area right here, you have your psychological level of 42,000 and you have a trend line. So normally once this trend, there's a minor trend here on the hourly time frame, once it gets violated, you should expect prices to move to the upside. But if prices violate, say, this minor trend coming in and it finds it difficult to move to the upside, it's an early sign for sellers to come in. And once you start looking at stuff like this, you can look at the DXY again and ask yourself, but what's the DXY showing me? You see? So take note, if the DXY starts pulling back to have a test of 104, and let's say even going lower like this, you could have temporal buys. You could have temporal buys on something like US30. So you could have buys like this on US30 if the DXY does something like this, or going in deeper. So there's still possibilities for us to see buys like on US30 right here. There's still possibilities for us to see these buys coming in. You could see these buys coming in if price pulls back within this trend line and starts playing like this. You could see the buys coming in. Why? Because there's a possibility on the DXY. Remember, I showed you all these possibilities already on the DXY. So there's still a possibility on the DXY for us to see sales coming in to test 104, and we could see the sales coming in even deeper for us to see prices moving to the upside. So this movement right here is very vital, because on a pair like US30, that could be the sell that propels these buys again on US30. So it keeps respecting this 8 hour trend line and the pivot points on the 8 hour time frame. So now let's look at, say, the 4 hour time frame on US30. Alright, cool. So now the 4 hour time frame on US30, if you look at it, price was moving like this. We was expecting this to buy, and there was this inability right here, and sellers came in. So currently what price is doing is making lower lows like this, and it's making lower highs as well. So price is currently moving to the downside. Now we have this psychological number of 42,000. So there's a question mark thing around this area. So how is price going to react at this area of 42,000? If it finds it difficult to go through 42,000, the next area has to be like the 43,000 area right here. So you could see prices moving back to the upside. So you need to watch what's happening on the DXY closely. This move on the DXY is very vital because it's going to switch everything up. Once the DXY starts moving to the downside, I'm still going to look for buys on something like US30 to take prices to the upside. Now I'm not just looking for buys on US30 because prices around a psychological level. No, I'm combining what's happening, say, on the not the daily, what's happening on the 8 hour time frame. So I'm looking at this. We have a psychological number, we have a trend line, and I need to look for a setup. So as price is moving to the downside, there's a setup I'm looking for, and if I see that setup, then I'm going to take the trade. If I don't see the setup, then it makes it difficult for me to take the trade, even though we have price trading around a psychological level and we have price trading within the trend line. So if the setup is not there, I can take the trade. So that's it. So let's look at the hourly real quick. So if you look at the hourly time frame, all right, so we had price making lower lows right here and lower highs, lower lows and lower highs. We had a lower low and buyers stepped in again. So buyers took prices to the upside, and currently price is coming back to have a test of 42,000. So if you see this inability around this area for buyers to take prices to the upside, then this is what we could be looking at. We could be looking at a move back to the upside. The next area is 43,000, and we can see prices going higher than 43,000. So another possibility I'm just going to show you. So if you have a test of an area like this and buyers stepping in, you could see prices moving to the upside. You get a pullback, another deeper pullback, and you see prices moving again to the upside. So what this is going to do is give you some kind of a temporal trend thing, and this is a little bit too deep because it's something I look at, but let's keep it at this. So let's say you have this price moving down, there's an inability to go through this point, and buyers are stepping in. Just keep it this simple, price should move to the upside. 43,000 is the next level I'm looking at for US30. But if we take this buys on US30 and it starts playing out and it finds it difficult to go higher, so you just see prices stalling at an area like this, then it could be an early sign for sellers to come in. Now if this sells come in, you need to look at the 8-hour time frame. You need to look at the 8-hour time frame and ask yourself, now if price is selling, what's happening actually? If price does something like this, now we're trading below 42,000, so we can get, say, a test of this area and for sellers to come in, and you see a further push to the downside. Once this happens, you step back to the daily time frame and you ask yourself, where is price headed to? And it becomes easy at that time. You have a break, you have a test, and price could simply be moving to the daily pivot point. So that's my analysis on the DXY, and I hope I made it very easy for you to understand as well. So there's still a possibility for us to buy when you look at the 8-hour time frame right here. You have a psychological number, you have a trend line right here. So this is a pivot point right here on the 8-hour time frame. There is still a possibility for us to buy, but these buys are pending the move that's going to happen on the DXY. So if the sells come in on the DXY, then we can see the buys coming in on US30. If however the sells coming on the DXY and it doesn't really affect US30, once the buy starts coming in, you could expect sells to come in on US30. All right, let's look at the next pair, and that's NAS100. So I'm getting really excited with NAS100, the S&P, and US30 because there's going to be a lot of massive moves, but you need to be patient and wait for these things to come to you. All right, so this is the daily time frame, and I'm going to tell you again, even a blind person can see this. So that's a joke thing, yeah. All right, so you have price moving to the upside. That's quite simple. That's the overall movement on NAS100 right now. Price is moving to the upside. So if price is moving to the upside, just looking at it from the daily time frame, what is price really doing? Are there any swing points you can see? So you had this move right here, price moved to the upside, you had a pullback, you had a move to the upside, you had a pivot point right here, you had a massive move, you had a pivot point right there, and that's what price has been doing. So normally, because we've established a pivot point already, so every time price pulls back to the pivot points, you should expect a move to the upside. So those are the pivot points. It's going to stay this way unless price violates this trend on this time frame. So currently on the daily time frame for NAS100, the possibilities for us has to be around this area. So I'm just going to zoom in on this area right now. So let's do something like this. So we've established already, we have a pivot, we have this area which we call like the pivot point. If price pulls back to an area like this, we should expect buyers to step in again. So this is what I'm looking at on the daily time frame. So now there's a quick question thing in it. So you have price moving like swings and stuff like that, but you probably see this on lower time frames like the 8-hour time frame. You have a push, you have this, you have another push, and you should be waiting for prices to pull back so you can take the move again to the upside. So on the daily time frame, currently price is trading at 20,000, this psychological level right here. If buyers step in from an area like this, you need to be very careful because you need to ask yourself the question, on the 8-hour time frame, does this area correspond to a trend line on that time frame? And if the trend line has been violated on that time frame already, then you need to pause a little bit. So yes, price is trading around 20,000 right now, which is a psychological level, and you should expect prices to move all the way to 21,000. But you need to be careful. The time frames matter a lot when you're dealing with this trends and stuff like this, because you might be buying here thinking price is going to take out an area like this, whereas it starts buying and then it gives you a deeper pullback and for prices to move to the upside. So you need to look at all time frames and ask yourself what's happening actually, where are we currently trading at, and where is price most likely going to go to. So on the daily time frame thing, yeah, price has a possibility to pull back to this trend line and for us to take buys. That's possibility number one, yeah. And possibility number two, you could see prices just moving all the way to 21,000, and if prices moves all the way to 21,000, that's not a move from the daily time frame. That's not a pivot from the daily time frame. So we have to look at the 8-hour time frame and see what's happening. Now same thing on the 8-hour time frame right here. So when you look at this, you had a swing, you had a pivot, and you had price moving. You should expect prices to react from the pivot, and it failed to do so, and currently we're trading outside this trend line right here on the 8-hour time frame. So looking at this, there is a possibility, again, as I told you, for prices to move to the upside, but you need to pay attention to what's happening to the DXY. If this guy starts dropping to the downside, yeah, you could look at, and what pair was I looking at? I think NAS. So you could look at this and expect prices to move again to the upside, but this is not a move coming in from the daily time frame. This is not a move coming in from the daily time frame. So that's a possibility. So looking at NAS, and I'll compare this with the S&P, I'll be more comfortable trading the S&P this week and not NAS, and just looking at the structure and stuff like this. So if you're going off of trend lines and psychological levels, there's currently no trend line here for you to work with, because this one right here was taken out already and price is trading outside. So there's a high possibility you could see a deeper push and for prices to move to the upside. Now this might not be the case if the DXY starts selling. If it starts selling, then you might see prices stalling around an area like this, just doing this, and you see prices moving to the upside. So that's a possibility, but not so every setup is not tradable. So every setup is not a tradable setup, and there's some setups I look at it and I'm like, no, I don't want to take this, simply because of the structure, what's happening on the DXY and stuff like that. So let's look at the 4-hour time frame. All right, cool. So looking at it on the 4-hour time frame, if I had to trade NAS100, what will I be looking for? Now I like this because we had prices moving above 20,000. We had a push to test 20,000 right here. We had another push from the buyers, and prices come back to an area like this at 20,000. So if we find it difficult for, let's say, for the sellers to take prices to the downside, this could be an indication for us to take prices to the upside. And if I'm trading something like this, I'm buying on this pair, going over what's happening on psychological levels and not really over what's happening on trend lines, because looking at what's happening currently, if you look at it on the 8-hour time frame right here, this was my swing right here and my pivot point, and price is currently trading outside this. So there's a high possibility for a deeper push and for prices to go to the upside. If this deeper push comes in, it could be, so you're looking at this on the 8-hour time frame. Let's look at it on the daily. So if you start having a deeper push on NAS100, you could see a push like this to deliver prices to this daily pivot area, and you see prices moving again to the upside. So that's why I'm a little bit careful with NAS100. I'll look at the hourly real quick. Yeah. All right, so on the hourly time frame, yeah, there's still possibilities for us to buy, and you're just going over what's happening on this psychological levels. But I need to pay attention to this, because buying this blindly without a trend line, it might make it a little bit too difficult, but it's also a possibility to buy. So that's what I'm saying, it's just risky. So you're looking at this and you're also expecting prices to move again to the upside, but knowing what's happening on the 8-hour time frame right here, we're currently trading outside this trend line thing. So you could expect a deeper pullback and for prices to move again to the upside. So in a situation like this, if I had to trade NAS100, I'll analyze the S&P, and if I have the S&P correctly, then I can revisit a NAS100 and see if there's possibilities to buy or to sell. So yeah, I think the next one I'll look at has to be the S&P 500. So again, back on NAS, if you look at it from the daily time frame, you could wait for these prices. Oh, sorry, not this. You could wait for prices to pull back to an area like this for you to make the buys. Now that's gonna take time. If you step down to the 8-hour time frame to look for another trend to work with, this trend is taken out already. Price is currently ranging. So this is another possibility. You can use this range move right here you see price reacting at this 20,000 psychological level, and if you find it difficult to go through this area, then you could trade from an area like this. Now remember, once price is ranging like this, what you're trying to do is look for your buys as close to this area right here as much as possible. So you want to buy from an area like this to take prices up, and you don't want to buy from, say, an area like this to take prices up. So you're looking for prices as close to this range as much as possible. And that's why if you look at what's happening currently, you have this range thing right here. If it keeps rejecting around an area like this, this can be a possibility to buy. You want to cap out a little bit from here, and you see if you can hold the rest to like 21,000. So those are all the possibilities. And remember, if the DXY starts buying, you can get a deeper pullback to deliver prices to the daily trend line, and you see prices moving again to the upside. So those are two possibilities to trade this. Treat this as a range thing right here. Take the buys as close to the bottom of the range as much as possible. You wait for a deeper pullback opportunity number 2, and you take prices to the upside. Price is going to show you what it really wants to do, and if you're patient enough, you can get these moves perfectly as well. So that's it for NAS100. Now let's look at the S&P. Same thing on the S&P. It's like a mirror image thing. So you have this right here, massive swing, pivot point, massive swing. We're waiting for the pivot and to see prices moving to the upside. So we can sell, you can sell the S&P, but it's gonna take time, and this is why I say it's gonna take time. If you start selling the S&P at an area like this to see prices coming back to this pivot point, it's gonna take a long time. Why? Because the 8-hour time frame, there's a trend that might still be in play, and that's why I'm very much inclined to what's happening on the S&P 500. So because when you look at the 8-hour time frame, remember on the daily time frame, you could see prices pulling back to take prices to the upside. It's going to take a long time. So let's look at, say, the 8-hour time frame right here, and I like this on the S&P. So if I had to pick one pair, it would be the S&P this week, and I'm looking for buys on this pair. So you see price playing out. You have your swing, price did its thing. Now you had your swing, all of this, price did its thing. You have your pivot point right there, and price made the next move to the upside, which is the next swing. So if we zoom in at that area like this right here, all right, cool. So this is what price has done recently. Move up, there's a pullback, there's a move up, we're expecting a pullback. So once this pullback gets violated, you see prices moving to the upside. Once you get a violation of this pullback, you should see prices moving again to the upside. So that's a bigger picture thing on the S&P 500. Now this is the same thing I was saying last week. You need to wait for prices to come to you, and then you react from an area like that. So look at the reaction thing here. You should expect the same thing. You see the pullback, you see that hesitation, and you can take your moves to the upside. So that's a possibility, and that's what I'm looking at on the S&P 500. Now if price gets to an area like this, you have two things I'm looking at here. You have 5700, which is a psychological level, and you have this trend line that has been built upon those pivot points. So you have these two things, and if you combine these two things, price should eventually give you those buys. Now if price finds it difficult to buy, similar to what I said on NAS and on US30, you could see prices dropping down below 5700. You start having a test of 5700, and you see price going lower to deliver on the daily trend line as well. So those are all possibilities. Now this is very simple, and if you can keep your charts clean like this, it makes everything easy as well. So it takes me like, I think 5 to 10 minutes just to do this quick analysis on all the pairs on every tradable day, and just to have an overview of what's happening and see if there's anything tradable. But trust me, with what's happening on the S&P, like this move right here and everything coming back, so I'm seeing like there should be a setup for me to play with. So there's a big possibility I'll pay attention to the S&P. So I'll pay attention to the S&P, and this looks tradable. I just have to wait until what's happening on the DXY. So if the DXY starts doing this movement right here for us to sell before buying, then you can look at the S&P. You can wait for these sales to complete, inability thing right here, and you see prices moving to the upside. So I'll pay attention to this on the S&P. All right then, so let's look at maybe like the 4-hour time frame real quick. All right, cool. So on the 4-hour time frame, you had your move, you had a pullback, you had a move, you had a pullback. So I was expecting prices here to go to the upside, which it didn't. It failed, and now we have price trading outside. You have a dip, so you had a range, you had a break, so expecting prices to continue to the upside or to continue to move to the downside. And for price to continue to move to the upside or to the downside, make sure you use higher time frames to understand what's happening. And in a situation like this, there's a high possibility we might see prices coming back to 5,700 psychological level right there, trend line right here. Combination of these two things, you should expect prices to move to the upside. So those are all possibilities. So back to the 4-hour time frame right here. So all we're waiting for right now, price is selling. There's a sell here, minor pullback, sell, there's a deeper pullback. So you should expect prices to sell again. That inability to move below 5,700 could be an early sign for buyers to step in and take prices to the upside. So that's the next possibility I'm looking at on the S&P 500. So let's look at the hourly, but remember guys, the hourly time frame is just for me to do, how do you call it, for me to take entries on this time frame, and I'm not looking at the hourly time frame to analyze or to do anything crazy. It's just for me to look for my entries. So there's nothing much I can say on this time frame. It's very similar to what's happening on the 4-hour time frame and the 8-hour time frame. So let's move to the next pair, and that has to be gold right here. All right, so let's look at gold from my biggest time frame, which is the daily time frame. So if I put this chart like this, let's see. All right, so you can see everything. All right, first thing, price is moving to the upside. There's a swing, there's a pullback thing, you have your pivot right there, and you have the next swing. So you should expect prices to pull back. We're expecting prices to pull back lower to an area like this, and we see prices moving again to the upside. So it's going to give you a move like this. So that's the possibility I'm looking at on gold. Again, this is happening on the daily time frame. It's going to take time, and for you to sit through this pullback like this, it's going to take time. This can take 6 months for price to do the pullback thing, and trust me, within 6 months you probably have lots of trades already, not less than 30 or 35 trades if you're just trading this prices pulling back to the daily trend line. So in the meantime, let's take this one step down to the 8-hour time frame. And on the 8-hour time frame, we're far away, like we're still very far from the trend line. So you have the swing, you have your pivot point, you have the swing, and we're waiting for the pivot point. So on the 8-hour time frame, price is still going to take a long time to come back to that 8-hour time frame, to that 8-hour trend line thing. So let's look at, say, the 4 hours. I'll do this on the 4 hour, and we have the next trend line right here. So I think you've heard this already. Price has fractals. So when you see something happening on the 8-hour time frame, you can step down to lower time frames and see the same thing, but maybe the price action is just a little bit different, but it's the same thing. So you have a trend, you have a swing on the 8-hour time frame, you have a pullback, you identify your pivot point, price moves, it gives you the next swing. You have your pullback, identify the pivot point, price moves. If this is on the 8-hour time frame right here, you can step down to the, let's say, the hourly, and you see the same thing. You see a move, you see a pullback, you look for your pivot point, you see the move. There's a pullback, pivot point, and the move. So the only thing that differentiates this move right here and this move right here is just maybe the number of candles, the structure. So on one it might be bigger and on the other one is smaller, or just the time it takes to give you something like this on the hourly has to be less compared to what's happening on the 8-hour time frame. But it's the same thing So we're looking at this on the 4-hour time frame. Same thing we saw on the 8-hour time frame. You have your swing, you have your pivot, you have your swing, and we're waiting for prices to pull back to an area like this so we can take prices to the upside. So this is what I'm looking at currently on gold. So looking at this right now, what are the possibilities right here? So the first thing is we might see prices coming back to this area on the 4-hour time frame. There's a high possibility for prices to come to an area like this, and you see prices moving again to the upside. Another thing is we can look at, say, the hourly, and if you look at the hourly right here, so I did this trend line already. I did this trend line last week, and I have this trend line to my chart, and I'm not touching it unless price violates this area on the hourly, and then I know price is going to deliver to the 4 hours. And if it violates that on the 4 hours, it's going to deliver to the 8-hour. If it violates on the 8-hour, it's going to deliver prices back to the daily. I have this in mind already, so all I'm waiting for is just to watch and see what's happening. So on this time frame on the hourly, there's a swing, there's a pivot, there's a swing, and you should wait for prices to pull back to your next pivot point right here. You have 2700, which is a psychological level, and you have a trend line thing right here. So this is it, and you should expect prices to move again to the upside. So pay attention to what's happening on the DXY, because it's going to help you understand what's happening on all these other pairs and how these pairs are going to move coming into next week. So looking at it on the hourly time frame, there's not a lot I can tell you, but you have a psychological number here of 2700. You have your trend line. Price made massive sales, there's a pullback. You should expect something like this to come in. So that's what I'm expecting, but price can do a completely different thing, but this is my expectation on gold. So let's look at this again from the daily, which is the highest time frame for me right here. So looking at it on the daily time frame real quick, there's a swing, there's a pivot, so it gives you a next swing, and you should expect prices to pull back to the next pivot on gold. So pay attention again to what's happening on the DXY. So you have this. If you see prices coming to an area like this, testing and dropping, then you can see prices moving to the upside, or you see price moving to an area like 104 and you see price moving to the upside. So we have all these possibilities on the DXY. We've mapped out all the possibilities on the DXY according to my system and my approach. So currently I'm just waiting for prices to pull back so I can take the next trade. It might be a buy, it might be a sell. So it just depends on what happens on the DXY and what's happening on those other pairs as well. So I'll pay close attention to it. Alright, so let's go through this real quick. So on the DXY thing, on the daily time frame, so now currently we're on the hourly, but on the DXY generally, we're expecting prices to continue to move again to the upside, and the next level has to be 106. But before price gets to 106, we need to go through 105. And how is price going to go to an area like 105 and 106? Option number one, you could see prices just moving all the way to the upside from an area like this. That's option number one. Option number two, you can see prices coming back to have a test of 104 and maybe just go down a little bit, and you see prices moving all the way to the upside. Option number three, you could see price stalling at an area like this, so you have this difficulty. You see price stepping down lower, like deeper, and you see price moving to the upside. So those are the possibilities on the DXY. On US30, price is currently at this psychological level on this trend line. If it fails to make new highs, you can expect this area right here, this trend to get violated. You get a pullback and you see prices moving to the downside. Now this is an 8-hour time frame. If something like this happens, you need to look at the daily and ask yourself simple question. So what's happening on this pair? So if you get the buys here and it fails to perform, you could see sellers coming in. So you get now the buys from the daily trend line, one attempt from the daily trend line. So let's look at the 4-hour time frame. Same thing. Price was moving to the upside, swing, pullbacks and stuff like this. Now we had the violation. So we've had the violation on the 4-hour time frame. We should expect some kind of buys to come in or an inability. You see prices stepping down lower. Look at the 8-hour time frame. and you should expect prices to move to the upside. So that's something I'm looking at right there. That's something I'm looking at right there. So let's take this out. I think I did, so that was US30. I think I did NAS already. I showed you what I was looking at on NAS. Okay, so NAS I showed you. All right, let me show you this again really quick on the daily time frame. So for NAS on the daily time frame, currently you have this move pullback, you have this move, you should expect a move like this. But overall on NAS on the daily time frame, this is what I'm looking at. There's an impulse, there's a push, here you have a pivot. You should expect this push to give you a pivot as well. So you might get a pivot around an area like this. You see prices moving to the upside, and if prices do not move to the upside, you could see, let's say, a slight test of this area right here. So there's just a lot that can happen, but pay attention to everything that's happening. And as prices breaching one level or one time frame, expect the same thing to happen now in the opposite direction, and for prices to test the next highest level. All right, so with gold, I just did this as well on the daily time frame. Swing, pivot, swing. You should expect prices to pull back, and you see this move, or you see the buyers reattempting from an area like this. So these are all possibilities. All right, guys, I hope you found this interesting, and don't forget to watch the other video on the market focus. So it's gonna help you. So pay attention to what we did on that other video, compare it to what we've done on this video, or compare this video to the next video, and just watch and see. Now we've been tracking this, I think, from last week. The same move we spoke about, impulse, correction, pivot thing. Impulse, you should wait for a correction, pivot thing as well, and you see prices moving to the upside. Price moves in three simple ways. You have your uptrend, you have your uptrend, downtrend, consolidation. That's all. So once you understand these things, it makes it easy for you, but it doesn't eliminate losses 100% of the time. So you're still going to have these losses, but then you can manage it properly, and you can increase your size once the setup looks really good, and you can reduce it when it doesn't look good. Personally, I keep it at 1% unless otherwise. All right, guys, so that's it. Make sure you watch the next video, and I'll see you during the next one. Bye for now.